Hi everyone, greetings from Flectra team. Myself Parthiv. In this session we are going to see how GST reporting for Indian accounting has been implemented in Flectra. So I am going to log into the system. This is just a normal database, Flectra database that I have created. So just going to log in and install the GST module for Indian accounting, so which is available as GST reporting for Indian localization. You can see a number of features that we have provided in this module, which is GSTR 1 summary, GSTR 2 summary. So let's just install the module and see how things work. In order to save the time, I have just fast forwarded the installation process. It may take some time for installation on normal scenario. So here it's installed. Once you install the module, you can go to the invoicing and go to the settings. In settings you can see there is an option down which is for GST settings. So here we can see whether we want to enable GST with which business type. So there are 4 types which are available: regular, registered, unregistered. You select the country, India, and you key in your GST number. I have one of the sample GST number with me, which I'll just key in. So this is just a sample GST number, and based on the GST number, system will recognize the state as well. Just save it. Once you save the information, it will actually reflect into your company settings. So if I go to my settings and go to the companies, if I open up the company details, you can see the address has been set to Gujarat, India, and my GSTN number has also been set. So you can see that system sets things automatically. Now we need to set business to consumer limits. So this B2C limits are basically sort of a limits that government has given. So we are just setting up for 2018-19, which is 2,50,000 for business to consumer and large transactions that you can set. Default is been given 2,50,000 to everyone. Now let's get started with the real scenario. So first of all, let's go to the chart of taxes or see how the taxes are being configured in the system. So we're just going to go to the configuration and taxes. So here you can see all the taxes are created, which is specifically for GST. So GST, IGST, CGST and SGST, but main tax is GST and secondary would be IGST. So if you see inside a GST tax, if I open up any GST tax like GST sale 18%, which is actually a combination of SGST and CGST tax. So 18% of GST is SGST of 9% and CGST of 9%. Where in case of IGST, it's purely single tax, which is at 12% of rate or whatever rate has been defined by government. So IGST is a simpler one, which is single tax, wherein GST is composition of CGST and SGST. Now if I see the fiscal position are important in order to switch the taxes whenever needed. So you just have to configure one tax on the product and system will convert it to CGST, SGST or IGST. So this conversion takes place automatically using fiscal positions. So, and there are 2 types of fiscal position. One is interstate, which is for the tax transaction between states. Another one is export, which is for the export based taxes. Now let's create some customer information. So I'm just going to go to master data and create customer. So first customer that I'm going to create is a company. So I'm going to create a demo customer which is a CGST and SGST registered company. So I'll name it in a convenient way. So it's a CGST registered company, and this company can be CGST registered for me if I'm in the same state. So if I'm from same state of Gujarat, the company has to be from Gujarat if it's a CGST or SGST compliant. So I'm saying, okay, it's a regular GST type, and I'm going to add up a GST number for that company. And system will again automatically bring in the state code, which is 24 for the Gujarat automatically. So I'm just going to key in the GST number. This GST number is again made up with your state code and PAN number of the company. I'm just going to key in the number and save it. Now once you save it, you see fiscal position is blank over here. You don't need to set any fiscal position for CGST or SGST registered company. I'm just going to give a more meaningful name to the company. Now let's create another company which is more of a IGST related company, or company which is not from the same state as the base company is. I'm just going to create a company which is for demo IGST registered company, or a customer I would say, and select the country India and select the state, let's say in this case Delhi, and GST type which is regular, and a GST number again for the company that I'm going to bring in. So just a GST number and save it. Now if you see over here, I have not set the fiscal position. I can either set the fiscal position over here from the existing fiscal position I can select, or there are other ways which is for automation, wherein I can do an automation for fiscal position when system will get the fiscal position automatically based on the state. We'll see in the presentation soon as well. So let's create some customer invoices first. So I'm just going to create first customer invoice. I select my CGST SGST compliant company, but before we do that, I need to create some product. So let's create product first. I'm just going to create product called mobile phone. In the sales price, I'm just keying in the base price, which is 10,000, and some cost price 8,000. And here I can select my taxes, which is my customer taxes and vendor taxes. I'm just keeping it as it is for the moment, which is 5% for the mobile phone. And this is just for demo purpose, so these are not the real tax numbers. So you may use the real tax numbers after consulting with your accounts department. And I'm just going to key in the taxes which is good for the demo purpose. So I'm just selecting sales 12% and purchase also GST at 12%. And if you see, I have keyed in the sales price and cost price. Now I'm going to create one more product, which is personal computer. Again, I'm going to key in the price. Let's keep it simple, 30,000, and my cost is 20,000. Oh, sorry, 28,000. And I'm going to again select the tax, which is 18%. Again, just a random tax, not the actual one. So just select and save it. And I'm going to create one more product, which is server, and keying in the information. The price is 75,000, cost is 70,000, and again I'm going to keep it in the higher tax slab, which is 28%. So just select the tax and save. And if I see the list of products, all these products are having a different taxes just for the demo purpose. So now let's get started with invoice creation. I'm just going to create an invoice and first I'm going to select the customer, which is the local customer but who is a registered company. So just select the customer and select the products. Here you can see the tax automatically comes as a GST sale 5%. If you see the breakdown, it has two taxes, CGST 2.5%. Yes, over here CGST is 2.5%, SGST is 2.5% as well, and total tax is 500. So there is a clear breakup of tax has been mentioned. And if I add more product which is of a different tax, I will get again a separate tax breakup for that product as well. So you can see over here separate tax breakup for the product which is having 12% as of GST, which is 6% of SGST and 6% of CGST. Just validate this invoice. So if you validate once you validate the invoice, you can see over here the transaction has been marked as a B2B. So it's because the business is already registered with GST. So that's the reason this transaction has been marked as a B2B. The moment you confirm the invoice, system will capture the GSTN type of that customer and GSTN number on the transaction itself. So let's create a new customer invoice for the IGST registered business, I would say. So I'm just going to select the customer which is IGST, wherein I have to tax the customer for IGST, I would say. I'm just selecting the products, and you can see over here that the tax is now applied on the customer is IGST. So you can see over here, if the tax is GST, the end tax breakup shows IGST for the products and the customer invoice, and you can see appropriate tax has been applied to the invoice. Now let's just validate the invoice. Once you validate the invoice, and if I go to GST reports, GST summary report, this is how it looks like. You can see over here the GST details of the invoices that has been created. You can see complete details of the business to business invoices. You can see all the details of the customer invoice along with the taxes that has been applied in those invoices. If you click on the tax, you can see what sort of product came in under those taxes. You can see over here I'm clicking on the tax and it shows me which product came for the in that sales invoice and what are the taxes that has been applied on those invoices. Now if I go back to the summary, further details in the summary will be visible as an transactions takes place. We can also export this summary into Excel. So I'm just clicking on the export to Excel, and it will give me the Excel file which actually I can, or I would say, import into the government portal, which basically lets you create a JSON file for the final filing of the tax on the portal. So now let's get started with some unregistered GST applicable customers. So we are going to create some customers which are not GST registered customers. I'm just going to create first customer who is a demo customer. I'll just say demo CGST SGST unregistered customer. So it's SGST CGST unregistered customer. These customers are basically those who doesn't have any GST registration. So GSTN type for this customer will be unregistered. So I'm just going to select country India, state same as ours Gujarat, and GSTN type will be unregistered. So I don't need to key in GSTN number or anything. I am just selecting or saying these customers are not GSTN registered, so they are unregistered businesses. In a same way, we are going to also create some customer who are IGST applicable, but those who are still unregistered. So I demo IGST unregistered customers, and I'm going to again select the GST and type unregistered. I'm just going to select the country India, state Assam, and that's it. I don't need to select anything, but I need to select the fiscal position over here for IGST unregistered customers. Now in products, let's key in the HSN numbers as well. So when you create the product, don't forget to key in the HSN number as well, as those numbers are required in HSN based reporting. So I'm just keying in some random numbers for the demo purpose. These are all just dummy numbers. You may use a master table to import those numbers as well if you are using a huge product set. So I'm just keying in some numbers as HSN codes. Now let's create invoices for this unregistered customer. So I'm just going to first create invoice for the unregistered CGST SGST customer. I'm going to add a product into the invoice. Selected the product, and if you see over here, my CGST SGST tax has been applied. The overall tax applicability remains the same. The only difference comes in a reporting itself and the transaction marking. So the moment I validate this transaction, you will see it's a B2CS. So it's a business to consumer or B2CS transaction. So system has marked this transaction as a B2CS transaction because it's done with an unregistered business. Now let's create another invoice which is for IGST unregistered business. So I'm just going to create one more invoice for customer who is not registered in the same state, or who is totally unregistered but whose address is of another state. So I'm just going to create the invoice for customer who is not in the same state and who is unregistered business. So just selected unregistered business, which is for IGST, and now I'm going to select product, and you can see over here the tax applicable is now IGST for that customer. As I said, there is no difference in tax lines or taxation. It's just the transaction marking which is different when the business is registered or unregistered. So that is the major difference when the business is registered and when business is not registered with GST and details. Now let's see how a third type of transaction, which is of business to consumer but a large value transaction, which we have set, works. So let's create a transaction which is a large value transaction. So I'm just going to create a transaction for a business which is already there. I'm just going to select the customer, and I'm going to select a transaction which is more in the value than 2,50,000. So I'm just going to select the server and 3 server which cost more than 2,50,000. So just validate the transaction. The moment I validate the transaction, my transaction type goes as a business to consumer but large, B2CL. So this is the automated mechanism that is built in, which actually marks the transaction as per the category and as per the transaction logic. If I see in GST summary over here, all of these transactions are located, B2CL large transaction and my B2C smaller transaction. So smaller transactions are basically transactions which are less than 2,50,000, and I can see all the details of products involved in this sort of a transactions. So in B2C summary I can see all the details. I can even export these details as an Excel and upload it in a government provided utilities as well, which will convert the information to a JSON format data, and you can see all the transactions came in a specific format, and all the B2CL, B2CS as well. So all these transactions from the system has been exported. There is no credit notes and return notes, and you can see over here the HSN based product details also came through. So HSN wise product details, which is important for government, which also came through in the report as well. So this is more of on a customer side or customer transaction, which is for GSTR1 transactions or GSTR1 report summary. Now let's see how the credit notes work with GST in Flectra for Indian accounting. So I'm just going to create some credit notes for some of the invoices that we have already created. So I'm just going to click on add credit note and I'm going to say create a draft credit note. You can select any of the option or refund methods, and you have to select the reason for returning as a credit note or creating the credit note. So I'm just going to select the reason is discount after sales or post sale discount, I would say. So add a credit note. This will create a draft credit note, and you can then edit the value of that credit note. So I'm going to remove one of the product, and I'm going to say okay, I've just given the discount on mobile phone only, and that is of certain value, and just click on save and validate that credit note. Just validated this credit note, and once you validate this credit note, this will be visible in your GST reports. So if I go back to GST reporting, GSTR1 summary, you can see over here I have one credit note for the registered business or registered user, and you can see all the details of that. What was the credit note number, what is the tax applied in that credit note, what was the tax actually refunded through that credit note, and what was the first invoice number or the invoice against which the credit note was created. Now I'm going to again do one more credit note, and you can see over here all the credit note details as well. So I'm going to create one more credit note for the another customer, which is unregistered business. So I'm going to open the invoice which I have created for the unregistered business. Same thing, again click on add a credit note, select a refund method and a reason for refund. You can select any of the reason that you feel appropriate, and then again edit the credit note for the value or just validate if you are going to do full refund. I'm just going to see again in GSTR1 summary, I have again information about credit note which is created for the unregistered business. I can see the invoice number against which the credit note has been created and the tax that has been refunded. So this is the credit note or debit notes which are issued against unregistered business, and you can see the parent invoice number and the credit note number in the same screen. If I go back to the GST summary and export the data as an Excel, in the credit note tabs or sheets, I would say, you can see all this information that has been created from the system, and I can upload the same file to GST utility to generate my filings for the GST, and this is a credit note which is for unregistered business. So that is CDR, which is credit note registered, and CDUR, which is credit notes for unregistered businesses. Now let's see how vendors or suppliers transactions work in Flectra with GST. So I'm going to create some vendors. First of all, we're going to create a supplier or a vendor who is registered. So it's a demo B2B registered supplier, I would say. This registered supplier could be from any of the state. I'm just going to keep at the moment from Gujarat or same state, a registered supplier, and I'm going to key in the GST number of that supplier. Just save this information, and I'm going to create another supplier who is unregistered. So just create another supplier which is company, which is for demo. So demo B2B unregistered supplier. Let's say unregistered supplier. And I'm going to select again country India, and state is Gujarat, same state. I'm going to keep it. GST type is unregistered, so this supplier is not a GST registered supplier. I'm now going to create the invoices for the suppliers or the transactions for the suppliers. So just going to go to the vendors bills and going to create first supplier invoice or vendor bill with the B2B registered supplier. I'm going to add a product which is mobile phone, and based on my cost price the unit price will come up, and based on that unit price the taxes will be applied onto the transaction. Once I save the transaction, I can now validate the transaction. Just going to scroll up and validate. Now once validated, again the transaction type is been recognized automatically by system, which is a B2B transaction type. In the same way, I am going to create another transaction, but now this time for the B2B unregistered supplier. So again, create a transaction, select the supplier which is B2B unregistered business, and going to select the products. Again, you can see the IGST, CGST, SGST taxes are summarized over here based on the transaction. Again, based on the taxes setup, system will recognize the transaction type, so which is B2B unregistered. So you can see over here my transaction type is business to business, but still it's unregistered. Now if I see in my GSTR2 summary, you can see over here transaction which is B2B registered, so supplies from a registered B2B. You can see invoice, I can see the tax break even or breakdown as well. If I go back to summary, and these are the supplies from unregistered suppliers, which is B2B unregistered suppliers. You can go back to the summary, and I can even export this data again back to Excel as well. But before doing that, let's create some credit notes. So I'm just going to create a credit note for my B2B unregistered supply or invoice. Then add a credit note and add the reason why you are creating this credit note. I'm just going to add a credit note. Again, edit the drafted credit note and change the value, whichever is the value for that credit note. Save it and validate. The same thing I'm going to do with the transaction that I have created for the business to business, but over here you can see in GSTR summary I have got this credit note details for unregistered business as well. If I click on the tax, I can see all the details of the credit note values and the tax break even. So let's go again back to the vendor bills, and I'm opening up the business to business invoice, credit note, selecting the reason for the credit note, add a credit note, and now I'm going to edit the value of credit note. Just change the value of credit note. Now save and validate. Now if I go back again to my GSTR2 summary, I can see over here my credit notes for the B2B. So I can see all the details of the invoice from which the credit note has been created, the value of credit note, taxes, and the product details. You can go back to summary, export details as an Excel, and if I open up again, the Excel, you can see all the details over here for my GST Year 2, which is my supplies from B2B, B2B unregistered businesses, credit notes for the registered businesses, and credit notes from unregistered businesses. So that's how the GST implementation works with Flectra for Indian localization. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope we have given you enough information. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel in order to get such informative video in future as well. Thanks, and I had a great day ahead.